Oh, that'll focus. Now it's in focus. Okay.
Good.
Okay. So we were talking about your school moving into the church basement and you're getting through these middle school years. Meanwhile, I'm supposing that the construction on the new school has started, has it? Or on the new Du Bois High School.
When school started,
The the construction on building the new
for the new one,
Yeah.
when we started this, no, this construction had not started at that time. When school first started, I don't think they had started the construction, the planning for it, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not sure.
But it was completed. Did the old school burn in 1954? Is that what happened?
I think it was 1954. Because my husband, their class, the last class in there was 1956. So that had to be 53, 54, then 50, yeah, 53, 54, then 54, 55, 55, 56. So it's 54, yeah.
So tell us about that transition from church basements to a new high school. Is that what it was?
Yes, a brand new high school, which was amazing to us. You know, that building had the chemistry lab. We had, well, it had everything. And as people say, they probably knew integration was coming, so it was top notch. But it didn't have the gym portion on. That was put on later. When I graduated, that was not on the school. That was built later on. But, you know, had nice restrooms. Teachers had teacher lounges, lovely cafeteria. As I said, the chemistry lab. What else we didn't have? Just, oh, we had a room where the kids that had to work on the yearbook, you know, they had rooms that they didn't have to do that type of thing in the classroom. Oh, we had a library. We had a nice library. A really, at that time, a really top-notch school. Which, to us, you know, was something spectacular. It was awesome that we had this beautiful new school. And, of course, not only were the students excited, but just the parents, the teachers, the parents, just everybody was excited about that. The groundworks, that was done by the voc ed teacher. The students said that they planted all of the shrubbery and the trees and things out there for that. It's just absolutely wonderful to us.
And
when they integrated, it was just a horrible thing, the way it was done. We had no clue it was happening. Parents may have, but we were not. We were told to, the last day of school, everybody was told to assembly in the cafeteria. And that's when we were told, next year when school starts, some of you will be going to different school. Some will be going to Oak Hill, some will stay here. And because of integration. And I'm sitting there and wondering, what the heck is integration? So what are they talking about? What do you mean? And why? Why? That means that the Mount Hope and Du Bois students will go to school together. We're going to school with the white kids, yes, and the school will be called. They didn't say. How did they say? Did they say? No, they may have said integration, but it was consolidation. We moved into Mount Hope High School. Du Bois was done away with. There was no Mount Hope coming into Du Bois. It was Du Bois students would no longer be Du Bois students. We would consolidate into Mount Hope High School. And my boyfriend, my best girlfriend, one of my best girlfriends, they would be going to Oak Hill because they lived in Summerlee. So they would not be coming up here anymore. Another thing that occurred, we were not told at that time that, when school started, I couldn't be on the cheering squad because they said when school started, they had selected the cheerleaders for that year. The only children that were a part of the extracurricular events, the football players were allowed to play football and the basketball players were allowed to play basketball. That was it. Because, of course, Du Bois had excellent sports program. So those kids were necessary to make the Mount Hope team better, which they did make it better. Yes. The class officers, they had been selected. We were not able to hold class office positions until, the next year we were a part of that. But those type of things occurred, and a lovely thing that did happen one year when we had class reunion, the white kids apologized, which I spoke up and told them, you don't have to apologize because it wasn't you didn't do that, you weren't a part of that. So I accept the apology, but it was not your doing. But those were the type of things that happened to us. I said I would get back to later, and those were the type of things. That summer before school started, when we were beginning to come in with the integration policy, one of my white neighbors sitting on my porch, all the kids in the summer, we would visit each other and tell lies and ghost stories and things like that. But one of the white neighbors was on our porch, and he said, why do you want to go to school with us? And I said, I don't want to go to school with you. And he says, well, you're going, and you're not going to do well because you don't know what we know, and you can't learn what we learn. And I politely looked at him and I said, just watch. You watch. Let's see who's going to have the best report card. But he had heard that. That wasn't him. He had no clue. He's sitting on my porch saying it. So he had heard somebody say that. Now, as an adult, I know that. But at the time, as the child, I didn't. That's why I just told him, watch. You watch and see what happens. Yeah. And of course we did. That made me do better because, I made good grades, but I made better grades after we integrated. I worked hard. Before, whatever I did was, I of course with my parents, had to bring home good grades. But after we integrated, I really did well. Yes.
What happened to the social studies curriculum? Because that must have changed dramatically, didn't it? From an all-black school to a desegregated school. What happened to the
You know,
sense of black culture? What happened
there
to that?
was no sense of black culture then. No.
Even
With
in
whites-
the
with the
Du
white
Bois
school?
school?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Talk about that.
Yes.
Talk about
Yes.
talk
Because
about that.
in the Du Bois school, yes, we talked about the accomplishments of the blacks. We were Negroes at that time, but anything that happened, that was a big deal with us, and we talked about it. But after integration, no, that was not a big deal. No, they would talk about who would we talk about? George Washington Carver. Who else? George Washington Carver would come up. I didn't think Langston Hughes did. But no, a lot of that was not part of the curriculum at that time. No. Now it evolved later, after I left. Some of the younger students, but in the beginning, no, that was not a big deal. No. What else might have been in the history book? Nothing about the African cultures. No, they didn't discuss that. The African empires. No, that was gone. Maybe some of the actors, maybe they mentioned something about Marian Anderson because, her singing on the White House steps. But a vast majority of that was left out of the history books. No, it was not there.
How will you sing the Lord's song in a strange land?
But in my home, and I tell everybody this, in my home, I was reading it. My grandfather, having been a Zion minister and having been a part of that mission, that church's mission program where they went into Africa and they had magazines that they got, they were probably quarterly rather than monthly, but those magazines, they were there for me to look at because most of the black kids, when they went to the movie, they saw Africa through Tarzan. But I saw cities. Me and my siblings saw cities with cars and, it wasn't jungle. So we did get that in our home. Yeah. That's where I was saying, I don't know if or how many were fortunate as I that were able to get that education. I don't know that. I would assume, knowing my friend Jean Evans-Moore, that she probably got that. Got the black history in her home. And I'm quite sure most, that was just that culture, the black culture. Blacks did want their children to get some of their culture. I'm assuming that. We are a proud people.
Was some of that available through the churches then? I mean,
Did you have
some ongoing relationship with that?
Yes. Yes, we're a big church. The churches, yes, I should not leave that out. Because I do recall many of, at that time, many of the people that were involved in the Black Renaissance, they came here to Mount Hope, to the church. Langston Hughes. We had some of the famous entertainers. You know, they were able to come into this community. So we did get exposure to the black culture. And that was a good thing, I would say, in this community, because the majority of the black teachers, they lived in this community. They were here. So we were exposed to a lot of black history and lived it. So I think back, a lot of times I as a child, you mean that this person was in our church? You know, when you're little, you don't think that that's such a big deal, but later on as an adult, you know, oh wow, just think about that. Mrs. Harrison, it comes back. Mrs. Harrison's husband, he was Reverend Harrison at the United Missionary, not the United, but the Union Baptist Church. He was the minister over there. His wife, she was a teacher, Du Bois, and so having that connection where they were connected to some of the famous black people, they were able to bring some of those people in.
But they came in as a church function.
It's a church with speakers or singing or whatever, but you know, they came and they were involved in. There was something they had too when I was young. It was called Salis Green Show. It was like you know how the carnival traveled, you know, went from city to city. Well, the Salis Green Show, it traveled city to city, and it was entertainers, singers, and dancers, and different performing artists, and they would come into the community and pitch a tent, and you would attend the shows there. Well, because of the segregated policies with the motels, they couldn't stay in the hotels and motels, so guess where they stayed? They stayed in the community with the community people. And I can remember some of those people coming, Lena Horne, those type of people coming in the community and staying with us, with the
neighbors.
Yes. And my mom had some of the, I don't remember who was staying there, but I know some of the entertainers, they did stay in our home. Because at that time, they couldn't stay in the hotels. Anything like that, anybody that came from out of town and had to stay longer than one day, they had to stay with the people, the community, black people.
But Mount Hope, as a location for the Du Bois schools, served a much larger area than Fayette County anyway, didn't it? No.
They were Fayette County. They were, but from different communities.
Different
See,
communities.
Yes, they, you know, as far as Montgomery, now Montgomery, they had their own school down there, but the blacks had their high school down there. But the students were all in Fayette County. They weren't from surrounding counties.
Okay.
Yes. Because those counties had their black schools also. That's what I say, over where, in McDowell County, where my grandparents lived, I had a sister and a brother that stayed with my grandparents. They attended school over there, Gary High School. So, and Du Bois, you know, we played them football and basketball. We played them. And that was something I remember traveling on the school buses to participate in those activities. In the winter, the buses with chains on the tires. But we went and we played, and kids, we had a good time. And cheerleaders would be on the bus with the football players. We had to sit in the back of the football players. We couldn't ride next to a player, of course. The boys up front and the girls in the back. And another funny story with my husband, one of the buses broke down in the cold, in the ice, and they had a flat tire. It didn't break down, it had a flat tire, and we were all freezing, and my husband told his uncle, the football coach, was it football or basketball? It was so cold it must have been a basketball game, but he saw a light, and he wanted to go over to see if those people would let the cheerleaders come over to keep warm. And my husband's uncle did not like it one bit. He was a Scot. And he got hit upside the head and told, Scots don't get cold. No. And we're all freezing to death, but that was the attitude people had back in that time. So they got it all done, and we were safe. Nobody was hurt. We made it back. I guess the boys helped change the tire on the bus. So all I know is I was cold. But we had fun.
So in this transition to a desegregated, consolidated high school, you lost a boyfriend, your best girlfriend,
and lots of other friends.
Your cheerleading position.
Yes.
What in the world? How did you survive that much loss? I mean, this to a person your age, this must have been like the end of the world.
Well, going back to being young, being young, having the parents that you have, you just shook it off and kept on going. Shook it off and kept on going.
How many times can you shake it off and keep going now?
What do you do? And we did, like I said, I don't know, as for me, and I don't know if it was because of the teachers knowing my parents or whatever, but I was not mistreated by any teacher, no more than, the white kids. I was treated. Now, some other students may have had different experiences, but I didn't. The French teacher, I took French, and the French teacher, I had worked for her for a day one summer. I didn't go back because I didn't think I got paid enough. I went to help her out, and I went that morning, and I worked all day. I was provided lunch, and at the end of the day, I got $2. I helped her clean closets and clean the bathrooms, scrub on my hands and knees the kitchen floor, things that I didn't do at home. At home, I used a mop and a bucket. I didn't clean the floor on my hands and knees. But anyway, at the end of the day, I was paid $2. And when I got home, I told my mother, I am not going back up there. No. I'm not going to work all day for $2. And having the mother I had, of course, I didn't have to do that. But I didn't go back, and she was just as sweet as she could be to me. One of the teachers that everybody just despised, and this was my senior year, senior English class. Everybody hated Miss Jones, and I loved her. I loved Miss Jones.
Why? What did you like about her?
Because Miss Jones had taken up for me. I liked, because we had literature, and I just loved, reading and literature and things like that. But one of the white students, one of the boys, and boys were doing this not just to black girls, boys was doing it to girls. When you walk down the aisle going to your class, they would have a mirror they would put down on the floor. As the girl went by, they'd have this mirror. And as I went by, I saw the mirror, and I took a notebook and bang, I started to say his name. I don't want to say it on this. I'll say Bill. I banged him on his head. And after I hit him on the head, in my head, I was saying to myself, oh, I am in some trouble. And Miss Jones defended me. She said, that's what you get for what you did. I bet you won't do that again. And I loved her after that. But like I said, all of my teachers treated me well. I did not have not one to mistreat me. Not at all. I'm trying to think that, and going back to that fall when we did consolidate, I just thought that, you know, the kids, the white kids, they were not going to be nice, but they were. They were. Yes. Mary Frances Amick, whose father was president of the bank, Margaret Darnell, and what's another one? Bootsy Brizo. I never forget going into the classroom. They came immediately. They came talking to us and you know, having conversations and what's your locker number? You know, just as if we were just returning from being with them the year before. Some other kids may not have had that experience, but I did. And I laugh all the time about when we were, you know, out at our lockers, and some of the girls back in the day, we didn't have, well, we wore the little bobby socks type of things in the legs. We used to say our legs are ashy. And they said, ashy, what's that? And they said, oh, our legs are scaly. And we would laugh at things like that, you know, but formed some really good relationships which lasted, yes. In fact, Mary Frances and I still exchange Christmas cards and things like that. Margaret Darnell has passed, but we did. Bootsy, trying to think of some, but several of them. Eva, and they married. She changed her name, but you know, good relationships that lasted. So we had some good things to come out of it. I tell everybody the education I got from Du Bois and then from Mount Hope allowed me to be able to be the woman I am today, to do some of the things that I think turned out to be pretty good.
The speech you gave before the school board when they, in the early days when the first discussions of